This is only rough. Technically, we need to give these two to the panel and then the wired one to you. Well, we're not going to talk now, so where shall we put it? Right here.
But are we going to have two of them?
Can you hold it, Jonah?
Sure.
You hold it.
Yeah.
Whenever somebody has...
People watching now.
Սա ոնց է անջատվում, ճողակի միացրես պիտի։
Մեր ալոյին կարող է չանջատվի, չէ՞։
Մենք սենց տղիքով մի կոմ ենք նստել, սենց նստվել։ Մենք դերը փոխենք, որ դրներ։ Դեղ աղջիկ proportion չխանգարի։
Okay, I think we'll get started in 1 or 2 more minutes. A couple more people coming in. Okay, good evening everyone. My name is Rafi Kasarjian and I'm very happy to be here tonight to moderate our event calling Becoming an Election Observer, How and Why. First of all, some of you might be wondering why we're doing this in English. The reason is that we have a global audience tonight. We're being live streamed via CivilNet, and so in order to have this message reach as many Armenians and non-Armenians around the world, we're conducting this event in English. Having said that, when we get to the question and answer period, if you feel more comfortable answering your question in Armenian, that's completely fine as well. I wanted to welcome everybody on behalf of the organizations that have helped to put this event together. We've got Transparency International, which as you know has been involved with election monitoring for many years around the world, as well as in Armenia. The European Law Association that's also been very involved with monitoring and specifically post-monitoring activities after elections over the last few years. Impact Hub Yerevan, as well as Citizen Observer, քաղաքականության Association, and RepatArmenia Foundation. So all of these associations have come together because we all feel that monitoring is important. An important part of developing democracy in Armenia. And I would like to introduce our panelists for today. So I'll start from my left. Irina Baplanian is a political scientist and a former citizen observer. Asine Khanjian, actress, producer, and also a member of the Justice in Armenia. Did I say that right? Justice Within Armenia organization, foundation. Vartan Marashnian is the executive director of the RepatArmenia Foundation. Sona Ayvazian is with Transparency International, and Dikran Yegorian is with the European Law Association. So thank you all for agreeing to join us tonight. And the first question I have is, why should we monitor? Why should we bother trying to talk about election monitoring, and in particular, talk about election monitoring by regular citizens, such as the ones that are seated here? You know, after all, we have international bodies that do monitoring. It always seems like it's somebody else's problem, not our own. And anyone is welcome to kick us off here.
I'll start and then I'll pass the microphone. I think one very important aspect of election monitoring is civic engagement. And we're now in our 3rd decade of independence, and unfortunately our civil society is still at very nascent stages. So this is one absolutely wonderful platform for our citizens and non-citizens as well who want to be part of this initiative to get engaged and see the process firsthand.
Very good, thank you.
I think in terms of personally and the individuals who came eventually, who joined me, and we created the petition of justice within Armenia. The obvious participation, the reason for participation to the elections were based on the very simple fact that any democracy functions with fair, free, and transparent elections. The history of elections in Armenia have not proven to be necessarily the case, and it seemed that if there was any legitimate, obvious, responsible way for the diaspora to become part of the initiatives necessary in Armenia to bring about the changes that are being asked, they are being proposed by the civil society, is to involve the civil society of the diaspora. So therefore, this was the most, in a way, evident way to invite everyone on an individual basis, because the initiative is really to attract individual commitment and engagement on behalf of the diaspora to be an observer, knowing also that observing and monitoring elections happen everywhere in the world. There is nothing unique in this particular sort of event, except the diaspora has never really taken part in that sense. Of course, I'm not talking about the expats who live here, who have been living here, and in a way they have definitely done that work. But in terms of diasporans like me who live in a civil society that is present as an Armenian identity, we have never been part of that conversation that is necessary to engage in. I think it was a very obvious, self-evident proposition.
Very good, thank you. Actually, I have a question. How many people in the audience have been election observers before? Well, actually, not just in the audience. Very good. So it looks like about half. Excellent, excellent. I think what I'd like to do is, Sona, maybe you could spend a couple of words talking about sort of the whole initiative behind the monitoring the elections that are coming up, just to set the stage a little bit at a high level, and then we'll get into more detail a little bit later in the presentation, during the discussion, if that's okay.
Okay. But I will start why to monitor elections with that question. Elections in Armenia are usually, for many years, accompanied by gross violations, ranging from vote buying, ballot stuffing, multiple voting, carousel voting, falsification of the results. So we have a whole spectrum of violations, and in order to prevent some of these violations, we need to monitor the elections, we need to oversee the processes, and it's not only relating to the day of the elections, but also the pre-election period, post-election period. Because of these violations, we do not have legitimate elections every time. Basically, after the elections, because of these violations, the results of the elections are being challenged. And we do not believe that the elections were free and fair. We do not trust in our government. And eventually, we have a government which doesn't really behave in order to be trusted because it hasn't been elected, in fact. This is why we think that it's important to monitor, and our practice, our experience has showed that the observers in the precincts, they really make a difference. They prevent the violations, they report on violations, they complain, and we get completely different results from the precincts where we had observers and from the precincts where we didn't have observers. So I want just several slides to show you what is citizen observer, though as probably some of you have been observers with us and you know already who are citizen observers. So citizen observer is a coalition of three local non-governmental organizations. Transparency International Anti-Corruption Center, European Law Association, and Journalists Club Aspares, which has joined together in 2013 to observe Yerevan City Council elections. And actually that time we were joined by a big group of repats and some diasporans as well. And we felt that it's so important to have this diversity and different people with completely different values to understand what is democracy, what is elections, why is it important to demand for free and fair elections, why is it important to demand for good performance of the government. That's why we, at that moment, we cooperated, and later on we decided, to the extent possible, engage with the diaspora and invite the diaspora to work with us in our observation missions. What we have done so far, so in 2013, after Yerevan City Council elections, where we had about 240 observers, and almost fourth of them at least were repats and diasporans. So after that, we decided to continue this mission and monitor the local government elections. And since 2013, we have been monitoring elections in about 100 communities with about 1,000 observers. And the peak of our observation mission was last year's constitutional referendum, where we managed to engage more than 1,000 observers and engage 28 non-governmental organizations and civic groups who joined us in this effort. What do we expect from the observers? Yes, and we decided, because of the upcoming parliamentary elections, actually the purpose that we decided to work at the local government level and to continue this mission was to get prepared for these parliamentary elections and to have a bigger mission to cover more precincts. And why we decided to extend our call this time to the diaspora, special call, and we are very happy that the celebrities joined this call, the celebrities responded to our call, was that we think that the potential that diaspora has, the intellectual, the civic potential, should be better used for the development of the democracy of our country. And for many years, unfortunately, diaspora has been used, sometimes abused. The resource of the diaspora was sometimes also abused just for, providing humanitarian assistance, doing some economic projects, making investments for economic projects. And diasporans have been also victims of the corruption in the country. They also have been victims of different civic rights violations of the country, but we never gave a floor for them to participate in the political life of the country. And we think that it's very important that diaspora participates and takes the responsibility for this country, for the democracy of this country, and we need to provide an opportunity. And we do not think that this is the only step, like monitoring of the elections is the only step the diaspora can do. By no means. We think that this can be a first step, and later on we should think of different platforms, different formats, how the diaspora should be engaged in our political and civic life. We really need their input in that sense. So what we expect from the observers, and we expect basically also from the diasporans what they are supposed to do. We expect that they commit to come to Armenia a few days before the elections and leave a few days after the elections. They need to take an online video course because they are coming late, so we will not have a chance to have trainings with them. That's why we are going to create animated videos for them so that they learn about the electoral processes, the changes of the electoral legislation, the rights and responsibilities of the observers, the electoral violations, so that they are ready once they come to Armenia, they are ready to go to precincts and observe. In spite of that, we also plan to have an additional instruction session once they are here to provide more practical tips for them to work as observers. They will need to be in the precinct throughout the whole day, which will be about 25 hours probably, because that's the legal duration of the electoral process. It can last up to 25 hours. So they should be ready to have this mission and have this preparation for being there. They will observe the process and they will report the violations, and we have an SMS platform which provides opportunity to provide live information about the violations in different precincts, and they can so anybody basically can also watch on the website what's going on in different precincts throughout the country. And they will need to document and videotape the violations to the extent possible, and they will need to participate in the complaint process if needed, if there is a need. And one golden rule that we demand that our observers comply with is to be politically impartial and refrain from demonstrating any bias towards any political party. That's the most important thing, and we expect that our observers, even if they have preferences, even if they are going to vote for this or that person, the citizens of Armenia, I mean, so they still need to show neutrality as they work as observers.
So Sona, it's almost like saying it's really about the why and the how, not the who, right? The idea is to focus on the process,
Yes.
rather than who or what party, right?
Yes, definitely. So we are not, well, personally we should be interested probably who wins, but as observers, as observation mission, we shouldn't be interested in who wins. We are very much interested in the lawfulness of the process, to what extent the processes comply with the local legislation and the international best practices. That's what we care for in our observation mission. So how to apply to be an observer? We have created a website and we have created an online registration platform. It's pretty easy, so you should just go to the website mentioned here and register as observer. And also there is a circulating form, I guess, in this hall where you can just put your contact information and later on we will contact for more details. So this much from me. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sonam. So I think we got into a lot of detail on the how. Maybe we can back up a little bit and talk again about the why. Malta, maybe you can talk a little bit about what your experience as an observer and what you've seen in terms of repats coming back and getting involved in the process.
Right. I'll start with the question, why not? I mean, why shouldn't we get involved in this? And for me, it's obvious if we are becoming a part of the society as repatriates, we should also take part in building a better Armenia. And from that point of view, being an observer is not just a hard work, but also is a fun, is a possibility to learn more about your society, to learn more about your nation, people, and also to make the difference. Because you're not only observing, you're also interacting with a huge number of people. People come to the polling station and they see you, they see they are professional, you are trying to do your work, and this also influences on the entire mood. After 2016, which was a very dramatic and also dynamic year for us, we definitely desperately need to have a positive narrative developed around Armenia. And we saw that diasporan Armenians were engaged in assisting Armenian army, the soldiers, the families of wounded and fallen soldiers. But this is another way people can get engaged. So from our point of view as a RepatArmenia, we are really trying to find different ways of engagement of the diasporan Armenians with Armenia. Well, we dream that we have 100,000 people getting engaged with Armenia through different programs, volunteering, internship, education, repatriation, but also coming to Armenia as observers. So as people come to Armenia on April 24th, they come on May 28th and September 21st, they also can come for different elections and not necessarily just for this election, because they should become a part of our culture. That's why RepatArmenia decided to join this initiative, and we really encourage our friends in the diaspora and repatriate community. And repatriate community in any case is pretty much active, but in any case, we really encourage them to get involved. Thank you.
Very good. Honestly, maybe you could talk a little bit more about, I mean, Batan sort of opened this thread around the diaspora involvement, and I think, you know, for those of us that have come that have grown up in countries where there's been a sort of a long democratic tradition, we sort of get used to the election process kind of happening very smoothly, although that wasn't quite the case in the U.S. this last cycle.
No, it wasn't.
But my point is, I mean, what is it that you think will be especially important for Armenians from around the world to get involved in this election cycle with this monitoring process this year in Armenia?
I think the election process is very specific, but at the same time is something that collectively it is accessible. The election process is also an invitation to be clearly part of the political life of the country. Now, you may say, yes, but these observers who are going to join this initiative right now, they can, I'm talking about, today I'll use the terminology, however right or wrong that is, but for the sake of distinction. We are talking about the old diaspora and the new diaspora. So when we refer to diaspora, generally, let us understand also that we have two main historical developments of the diaspora. The one diaspora such as mine doesn't have the possibility of voting in this country. But I do have the possibility, and many like us have the possibility of coming as observers because it's a practice, universally understood practice. It is sort of legitimate. It is, there is nothing sort of inappropriate about our involvement at that level. But when we're talking also about elections at this point, we should also remind that there is another way of participating to the elections. And it's not necessarily about coming as observers, although that is the general possibility for everyone, but there are all the diasporans who have dual citizenship and they can actually come to Armenia and vote. Then this is another clear way of participation to this electoral sort of process. They have all the rights for it. The mechanisms, I'm sure, are in place, or at least maybe Dikran can eventually give us a sense of how that sort of possibility can be put in place if a diasporan Armenian who has dual citizenship can come and participate. But I think what is really important at this point in this particular sort of conversation is that this is really the first time where the diaspora is being asked to be contributing beyond the traditional ways that we have been contributing. We have accepted that responsibility. Many of us in our different ways, either through collective, institutional, organizational sort of incentives, we have been part of the life of Armenia, but we have been always part of the general understanding of what are the limitations of our contribution. This particular call is, as far as I'm concerned, a very legitimate call to an entire nation, because at the end of the day, I don't even ask the permission for that personally, and I do expect that my compatriots around the world, including my compatriots in the country, understand that it is not about having the right or not to feel part of a nation. I feel that my responsibility and all of us should feel comfortable that we do have a role to play in the well-being of this nation. That the nation right now is in this situation or that situation. We know the circumstances. We won't go into the details. This is not about also particularly saying that this political sort of historical development is something that has to be crushed. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is about creating a communal sense of participation, that we can all in our own way be part of the development of the two civil societies that we have the benefit, the privilege, and the luck to have as a nation. We have a homeland with its own civil society, and we have a diaspora that has its own civil society. And the historical development of the two have been very different and sometimes apart, but it is not impossible at this point, and those who would say 25 years, it's such a long time, and yes, it has been a long time. A lot of things did not happen as well as they, as well as they could have been during these 25 years, but it's not late to sort of say we can start today. And that starting point is the hope towards change that we, each of us, can bring. All of your relatives who live in the diaspora can do it. Everyone has that option, possibility, and should feel the self-confidence that the invitation is not just something that is being thrown around like that. It's an invitation that is also coming from a legitimate place, which is the homeland. What I personally heard over the last 6 or 5 months in terms of that request, what eventually the NGOs who have been doing real serious work around the issues that the country is plagued with at this point, that invitation is out there. Now it is our responsibility to hear it and figure out that it's very simple, actually, participation and contribution. We can do it.
Thank you. Irina, in a very brief way, there are a few things that are sort of different about this election than the previous ones. And there seem to be sort of more coalitions evolving. It seems to be like it's going to be more contested by more groups than in the past. We certainly have changes in the electoral law that I think Dikran and Sona will talk about a little bit later. From your perspective, sort of why is it important now for people to really, I mean, I think the numbers we've been talking about are several thousand observers since we have 2,000 polling stations, so we're talking about a major effort to be able to cover all of those polling stations and do our and have the sort of this process yield to as fair an election as possible?
I'll start answering this question by taking up on Arsene's point about civil societies in both communities, in both diaspora and Armenia. And to answer your question, why now? Well, because we're 25 years late. Unfortunately, our political leadership over the past now 3 decades has failed largely in articulating the right vision of nation building, because there has always been this discourse of us and them, diaspora and the state. There's very little narrative on nation building. And this is a perfect example of nation building where, whether you're a citizen or not, if you feel you belong to this country, you want to participate. And a platform like that is great, where even if some critics are saying, well, diasporans don't really understand the nuances of the country, wonderful, but it's even from a symbolic standpoint, it's great to have diasporic participation in the process of election observation. Now, why now? I think the representatives of NGOs here and organizations will agree that over the course of now 2 decades, they've gained tremendous experience in observing elections. They know the nuances, and over the past 2 decades, just like the various processes have become more sophisticated, so has the fraud itself. And as Sona mentioned, there's a lot of vote buying, voter intimidation, and a lot of work that goes into the process beforehand. So today, with this upcoming elections, we also need to be prepared and know what goes into the election fraud and be vigilant in observing the elections. But also, as you mentioned, that it's going to be a massive undertaking. As we know, we have about 2,000 polling stations across the country. And now, just like as fraud occurs before, fraud occurs after, as Sona mentioned, because we don't really know what happens in the Central Electoral Commission. And it would be an incredible opportunity this time around, and hopefully in the other upcoming elections, to actually verify numbers. Because as Sona said, those precincts where we had observers had different results, and we had seen different outcomes. So imagine if we are able to cover all of these precincts and actually compare the official numbers with the independent numbers of the observers. Then there will be an actual foundation, a grounding to contest the elections, for example.
Very good, thank you. Sona, could you talk a little bit about what's happening before the elections in terms of voter education, in terms of, so that somebody walking to a polling station knows their rights and knows what to look for? Because I think part of it is sort of what happens in the polling station, part of it is what happens leading up to getting there and exercising their right as a citizen to vote.
Okay. So how many days before the elections the precincts should post? How many days? Okay, 43. Okay, from 45 days before the elections, the precincts should post the list of the voters just in front of the precinct, so the voters can check whether they are on the list. If they are not on the list, so they should claim. They should go to the passport. Police station, the passport department, and request to be registered to correct mistakes. I will probably pass to Tigran to speak about these issues. But before the elections, yes, what I will speak about the responsibilities of the citizens. So they need to check whether their names are on the list. If they are not on the list, so they need to correct this. They should. I recommend to participate in the campaigns, to check the platforms of different political parties, so that to be informed citizens, that when they go to vote, to be informed rather than just be limited to the intimidation or be limited to whatever their bosses say, or limited to the small circle of the acquaintances that they have. We suggest that they get self-educated basically with the electoral processes, and they watch different campaigns, and they compare also what the political parties have promised last times and what they really implemented. Unfortunately, our political parties do not have well-developed platforms, and they do not really keep the promises. But this is a good thing for the citizens to follow and to pursue and to demand, actually. And that's the issue, because the political parties basically don't get elected based on the platforms, political platforms, but they get elected based on how much money they have, how much intimidation they can exercise, how many oligarchs they have in their political party. So this is a self-education process that the citizens should just understand. And also one important thing is that people should understand that the voting is confidential. A lot of time this rule is being violated, especially in the rural communities, when people do not really understand completely, or they are afraid of their mayors, of their police department representatives, etc., and they might just get out of the voting booth and show the ballot how they voted. So these things, this one of the main messages for the education should be that the vote is confidential, and whatever intimidation you get, whatever promises you get, you should just go and vote with your conscience, basically. Okay.
Thank you. Deacon, I know that there's been a long set of discussions between the opposition parties and the governments to make changes in the electoral law. And I understand that several important changes have been made in the law, and some new technologies have also been introduced into the polling stations. So could you talk about those changes that you think are most critical in terms of moving towards fair and more transparent elections first, and then we can talk about some of the places that you think that there's still a lot of risk. So let's focus sort of kind of on the positive things first, and then where we still see some risks in the process as it's been defined in the new law.
Thank you. But first of all, let me answer to the first question, and I'll give a very simple answer, because in my understanding, the democracy starts from the elections, and the participation on decision-making process and governmenting process is starting from the right to vote. And these very important processes and rights should be under very strong attention of civil society, and should be oversight by public. That's why you should and the one should participate in monitoring the election, because this is the really good and effective instrument for rule of law, for in this stage of in starting of the forming governmental bodies. The second is very right point, to be aware. To be aware of political parties, what are they thinking, what are they promising, and what are they going for. Up to your question, so the second question, yes, fortunately we have, and this struggle has already also positive outcomes. We were able, I'm saying we, meaning the whole energy and the whole this cooperation of experts, civil society, different political actors, it makes us able to negotiate and have now published voter lists after the election, after the voting. And this is very important thing starting from 2003, when these lists of voters who participated to the elections were kept under the secret. And nobody were able to understand how many people participate to the elections. And these participation number are showed higher than it was in reality. And that's why there was real possibilities to have additional votes in a pocket for those who had instruments, administrative resources, to put pressure on the precincts and on the whole electoral system. As Arsene told, and I agree, we're not going into the details about who and when. And this is the most important component for this parliamentary election. And there is another instrument we need to use. It's pre-registration of people who have the right to vote. And we need all the diasporans and all over the world who are not going to participate in these elections as voters to register in the website citizenobserver.am, and this will make us and this will make possible to check if anybody voted instead of them. So we will have pre-registration, not in formal way, but we will have this pre-registration by our instrument on the website of Citizen Observer, and this will make will make us stronger in the fight of election falsification process.
You're kind of crowdsourcing transparency.
So, yes, something like that, and that is the main instrument. Of course, there are different other changes in the criminal law, changes which were effective in the fight of electoral fraud, and which we think that should be used or would be used against those who are working or who are fighting against these falsifiers and falsification of election, against the observers and against the different political parties. But I'm not sure that we can go to the details.
One thing I wanted to check with you, I understand that there are going to be machines now that will actually read in the passports or the ID cards, so that at least in the same station, no person can come in with the same passport twice to vote. And my understanding is that after the election, as part of the complaint process, you could actually check to make sure that there were no duplicate uses of a passport or ID across the polling stations. Is that your understanding as well?
It is the idea they brought with these electronic registration machines, but the other positive outcome of these negotiations was that we were able to restore the paper-based registration, because the government were trying to bring these electronic registration machines instead of paper-based registration, and it could make this checking process impossible or more doubtable. But this restored paper registration can give us enough can give us enough information to check the registration, and yes, there is a possibility to request the cross-check after the election by these electronic machines, but anyway, I need to be very careful about this, because we don't have still enough guarantees, enough experience to say that it will be a positive change and it will bring to a good place.
Okay, I understand. Can we talk about just one?
To Dikram about because this is a technical thing as well. We don't have the answer about. Oh, sorry. Sorry about this. I would like to stay with you, Dikram, for a second because the question that I just raised, it came up. The diasporans who do have dual citizenship and they can vote, but they cannot go to an embassy in their own country or city because that law has been changed and they don't have the right to vote, which a lot of other country citizens can do. But for whatever reason, this has been changed. So they cannot actually vote. As a Canadian with dual citizenship, I cannot go, or someone else would not be able to go to Ottawa and vote from the embassy. What is the alternative if they're going to come to Armenia to vote? How much time they have to, if they have to, register in advance? What is it that they would need to do in preparation so that they don't come here and then end up being told that they cannot vote? Even if they have the passport, let's assume.
This question touch the other question, the very important question according to the voter lists, which are bigger than should be in reality, and because of the aspirants, because we have a big part of Armenians who has the citizenship but lives abroad, and they're not coming to the elections on the election day, but they are in the lists because it is their constitutional right to have a right for voting. And the government used this thing, saying that if they have right, I'm keeping them in these main lists, and that's why we have, for example, 2.5 million electorals, voters. So anyway, anybody who lives abroad and who is citizen can just come back and vote because he is already in the lists.
So there's no extra work you need to do. I mean, if you're an Armenian citizen, as long as you go to the precinct where you register, where your registration was, you can vote, right?
But if what you need to do?
Never live here. They live in Canada and they get dual citizenship. Yes.
Yeah.
They never been registered here. They will get.
No, they would have been registered because they left from Armenia. Yeah, I'm talking about the diaspora that has come out of Armenia. The newer diaspora who has been, but now of course there is another question as well. I would like that's a very important point, is that there are Armenians who were born here, but they were children when they left. Are they registered automatically the moment they're born for voting? Probably not. So let's assume that the 22-year-old Armenian who left at the age of 12 wants to come at this point and say, I'm going to cast my vote. What does that young man or woman need to do to make sure that they are doing this in advance enough so that they don't come all the way to Armenia and then be told you cannot because your name is not on the list? Maybe their parents are automatically on the list, it looks like. The negative we can change it to positive usage. But let's say that young Armenian who would have dual citizenship but not on the list of the voting registration.
Anyway, there is no, it's not a very big problem because they can do it in advance by arriving and applying to the authorities, in this case to the police, saying that I have come and registered at this address. Please add me to the voters list.
They can do this 5 days in advance. For instance, if they come 5 days before the elections.
They can do it even on the day of the elections. So they can restore their right even on the day of the elections.
So I would like to open it up for questions because we've had an audience sort of patiently sitting through some of this discussion. We actually have 3 sources of questions tonight. Obviously, all of you that are here are welcome to come up to the mics. And we will, rather than sort of pointing people out, if you just go up to the mic and you'll have your chance to ask a question. We also have, since this, as I mentioned earlier, since this is being streamed live via CivilNet, we'll be getting some questions via CivilNet, as well as from our website, from our social media. We'll be taking questions as well, and Sarah will read some of those. Before we get to your questions, Sona and Dika, can we talk a little bit about numbers? Because we talk about several thousand observers. So maybe you could talk about what's the target and why. So we have 2,000 polling stations. How many observers would make this sort of an ideally monitored election?
Okay, there will be about 2,000 precincts, I'm not sure about the exact number yet. Ideally, we would need about 4,000 observers, because usually we work in pairs so that there are partners, basically. There is not a person alone for the security reasons, as well as for just mutual assistance and division of the responsibilities. So ideally, we would need 4,000. At least we are targeting for 3,000, so that to cover at least 3/4 of the precincts. At the moment, we have about 1,900 people registered throughout the whole country. So we are dealing with the lists at the moment, trying to organize them. And we hope that usually before the elections, like very close to the day of the elections, there is a big peak of newcomers. So hopefully we will have newcomers earlier than on the last day. So we are waiting.
I think these numbers are the observers locally, as in from Armenia right now.
It's all together, because we have a general database which is able to select Armenian ones, non-Armenian ones, different Marsis, so we are able to sort them.
I'm asking about the diaspora. Is it calculated in this number at this point?
It's calculated in that number,
But,
yes. I can't tell the exact number for the moment, but yes,
yeah.
it is included.
And I think it's very important to add that that number will change, has to change, because we are still in the process in the diaspora to sort of create that awareness, expand the awareness, ask different groups, different sort of interest groups to be engaged. So that process is still in the works. I would like to add that, for instance, at least from our group and my colleagues, whoever we have reached until now in terms of creating that interest, in terms of participation, they have been always targeted towards individuals. We have not gone through any institution, organization, association as yet, because I think those organizations will eventually be reached probably by Transparency International to be officially asked to be part of this election monitoring process, because they certainly can mobilize if the intent is there, if the belief and understanding that this is time to also trigger that kind of contribution from an institutional or organizational perspective. But our efforts are really to go towards individuals, and there have been groups that have formed, for instance, like the Armenian Bar Association in the United States has already started a campaign of calling upon individuals of all walks of life, not only lawyers in that sense, to be part of the election process. There is Justice Armenia, which is different from Justice Within Armenia, which has been our petition. This is an organization that existed for many years now, and they are creating, for instance, instance, an opportunity for groups within which individuals can join. If they don't want to come on their personal initiative, they can join Justice Armenia's initiative to come as part of a collective. So there are the students' associations in universities and so on. So in terms of numbers, we don't have a clear sense at this point exactly what the diasporan contribution clearly is going to be. But this is something that is in the works. One thing I would like to say, to add, and I'll stop really there very shortly, is that why the diaspora's involvement in the election process as observers? I think part of the issues that you brought up, Sona and Dikran as well, historically, and also Irina, is that the observers have also been, in a way, sort of harassed by a certain system where the very act of that civil right to be an observer has become an issue in terms of the individuals because they would become threatened. The authorities, or however the structure is, they can receive threats about their participation, or their families would. So there is a situation where some observers in the past have had to retract from that interest because they could not carry out in all legality that very simple civil right towards a democratic process of participating to elections as observers. The diaspora's involvement in this case is crucial because that leverage does not exist on the diaspora observers' reality. There is nothing that can be of threat to any of us participating, and I think we should take that responsibility very seriously because we can play a significant difference there.
Thank you, Asiya. One last point actually that's related to this. One major change in the law is that you no longer need to go through a certification process to become an observer, right? So it's become much easier for someone to, you should go through the training so you know what to do, but there's no process of having to take an exam in Armenian and, have a lot of, have a long process. That's correct, right? If I understand.
Yeah, that's correct. But in order to check the knowledge of our observers, we will prepare self-testing mechanisms.
Very good. So I'd like to turn it now to questions. Again, there's a microphone up here, and maybe until you come up, Sarah, maybe you can read one of the questions from online.
Okay, guys, we put a microphone over here. Vahe, I see you have a question, so you can join me up here and sort of let's have people over here. But let me just do a few questions from various members, I'm guessing, who are outside of Armenia. One concern from Ani Khachian. What if I don't know the Armenian language? Can I still be helpful? And basically she'd like to know what to do if she doesn't speak Armenian.
Okay, as I mentioned, we are going to work in pairs. The observers will work in pairs. So we will just pair her up with someone who speaks her language and knows also Armenian. So if there is a need for translation, for understanding what's going on in the precincts, she will have no problem.
I want to add that the whole process is not only about reading the list or checking the passport. There's a lot of logistics that go into the observation, watching how people are walking in, ensuring that the sanctity of voting is observed, meaning that nobody goes into that area of voting. So there's a lot of stuff that does not require language but requires a person to be there. So definitely, to take up on Sona's, there's a lot of logistics that go into observation, and you wouldn't require the language if you have a pair that speaks Armenian.
And also I would like to add that we will have video trainings also in English, so they can pass this training, and the absence of examination process makes them able to participate. And
thank you. Bye.
Yeah, Sona, I have a question. Basic numbers. You said you already have 2,000, and most probably you'll hit 3,000. And the best effort so far was around 500?
In the past,
yes.
1,000.
1,000?
Yeah, a little more.
So significantly larger. Was it an issue of funding, or was it awakening of all of these observers. What is it that there's this crescendo of numbers for registering to observe? Is it
Of course,
so, you know?
yeah. Of course, we started the fundraising also earlier, so that to be prepared for that big number. But also, it seems that there is a raising because after the constitutional referendum, even we had, as I mentioned, local government elections, and we were calling for people to get trained also with this new electoral legislation. And we had a lot of people who expressed the interest. So it seems that there is a rise in the interest, especially among the young people, which we feel it's very important, and we are very pleased to see these processes going, in the very healthy processes going on. Hopefully, until the end, they will not change their minds. Usually, right before the observation, there is some intimidation, like remembering who are these people's parents, relatives, and like intimidating that they will lose their jobs, that something will happen with their brother, with their sister, etc. But our observers, most of them, the majority of them, have proved to be really brave and devoted people, so they were not afraid. And in this sense, also diaspora's involvement and RepatArmenia's involvement is so critical because they will not be intimidated with these family ties, these traditional family ties. That's why also this diaspora engagement seems to some people, some officials, it seems to be a bit dangerous, as we can call, because it's kind of breaking the traditions, breaking the traditions of the intimidation, the general roots of intimidation that they are using.
Իմիջիալոց, եթե ուզում եք հացը հայերենով տակ, ոչ մի խնդիր չկա, կներեք, որ անգլերենով այսօր բարեցինք, բայց ինչպես ուզեք։ Եվ խնդրեմ մոտեցեք մայկրոֆոնին, եթե հացերով եք տալու։
Thank you. I have three technical questions, quick, just to clarify certain things. First, I think I know the answer, but you can be an observer and can vote, right?
Yes.
Okay. The second is just to be clear on what the law is in terms of the list of voters. Is it related to so-called registration at your address?
Yes.
Then I think people cannot come from abroad and register in the same day. So it's a pretty lengthy process. So we need just to be clear to provide correct information. So you have to be officially registered at certain address to be in the list of the voters. Is it correct?
There is several lists. The main list, which are published 40 days before the election day. The last corrected list, which are published 4 days before the election day. And if somehow you didn't get into these lists, you can restore your right to vote in the next 2 days before, 1 day before, and during the day of election.
The question is, how do you get on the list? Do you have to have the stamp in your passport at certain address to be in the list or not?
So there, if you're if you have registration, you will be in the main list. If you don't have registration, for example, or somehow you are not in that list, you can restore. Or if you don't have registration, but you're going to the police and saying that I'm here and I will be, for example, on the voting day in this polling station, they are giving you paper document, and you're going and presenting it in the polling station. They are adding you to the additional list, and you're voting by this additional list, which calls lists which are made during the day of elections.
Okay, so there is a procedure.
Yes, there is.
That was not clear. And the last thing, let's say
I'm sorry. Even if, for example, police refused you to give this to restore your right, if you are a citizen, you can go to the court in the same day, and the court should have judgment in the same day before the end of elections, and they will restore your your right to vote. You will have judgment, and you will go to the polling station and vote by this judgment.
and the last one is
So there are no apologies for diasporans not to come to vote.
Yes, very good.
no, but people need to know the rules. And let's say I live in Armenia and I have a registration, but I know I'm going to travel. That pre-registration, so-called pre-registration list, can I basically get my name on that?
Yes, yes, you're asked to do it. You're asked to do it, but it's not an official pre-registration thing. It's unofficial. It's organized by Citizen Observer Initiative, and it's very interesting instrument.
And the last one, is there an absentee ballot here? Provision of it?
No.
Okay, more questions, and thank you, Anna, for keeping them very short and to the point. I would ask anybody that's asking questions to actually ask a question instead of make statements. If I don't hear a question mark within the first phrase, I'm cutting you off.
Okay, hi. So one of the political parties, the civil contract, created a mobile software for tracking the number of participants in the elections and actual distribution of votes, and showing this data in real time on the website. Are you in any way planning to cooperate with them on that?
I'm sorry. To be clear, the application of distribution of votes is agreed by the agreement between government and non-governmental parties, and it was amendment to the electoral code.
I think you're talking about a different application that was.
Are we going to see the results in real time, like how many people are participating at, say, 3 p.m., 5 p.m., and who are receiving the votes, like in 9 p.m., 10 p.m.?
So you mean official data, or you mean collected by monitors?
Observers.
So, okay, there is a checklist, and there is different information, type of information, and actions our observers should be due, and part of them are not finally decided, because they need to be adopted to this new code, the parliamentary elections, because Citizen Observer Initiative didn't observe parliamentary elections. So I can't say, we can't say finally, are we going to collect this data or no, but I don't know. I don't know. The answer is don't know.
So as Tigran told, some of the methodological questions haven't been decided yet, but I would like to add something regarding the cooperation with the political parties. We are going to extend the call to the political parties to cooperate on the identification, on the detection of the violations on the day of the elections. So we'll make a call asking them, whoever is interested, whichever political party is interested, to engage its proxies in reporting of the violations. We are not sure which political party will be interested and will agree to cooperate, but we will see and we will make a judgment to what extent they are interested in the prevention of the violations or like having clean, free and fair elections. Just for your information, so that if you hear that we are cooperating with the political parties, that will be the only way probably to the major way to cooperate with the political parties. If they are interested in prevention of violations, yes, we are ready to provide also our mapping platform for identifying those.
And I want to add to what Sona said. So we are not going to cooperate with political parties, but we are going to offer them to cooperate with us because they need to use public watchdog, they need to use everything that this monitoring mission can collect and can public, and they need to use this evidence because they are participating to these elections as parties, and they should be interested of using this evidence to be able to take complaints and be able to take cases to the courts, also to the Constitutional Court, if they have any doubts about the outcome of the elections. So we're calling them to cooperate with us and their proxies to cooperate with the observers in the polling station and to be a good team against in the fight against the violations of right.
Thank you.
Very fast questions, but they will be three, right? First one is related with my young colleague, guys. It's a question about V6000, which announced by the others, like the local observers. They announced that they need the 6,000 observers, three for each polling station, to make it more clear and transparent. Yeah, it's a civic contract, guys, and the question was about them and their phone. Would you cooperate with them, or the strict they should came to you said, oh, please let us be part of you? It's the first question. Second question is about secrecy of voting, which about you hear a lot, and about the list of voters. Is it intimidate the secrecy of voting when you show the people, for example, I'm a director of the organization, and I promise to one of the parties that all my collective will vote for your party, guys, and then I see that half of my workers not vote publicly. It's published. Is there any problems with that? For me, yes, it's a huge problems. I see there. Ես տեսնում եմ այնտեղ վտանգ, որ մարդիկ չունեն գաղտնիություն իրանց քվեարկելու կամ չքվեարկելու, քանի որ քաղաքացին ունի նաև իրավունք չքվեարկելու, հա? And my third question is about finance. Would the diasporans and repatriants pay for the observing? Like, they will go to the regions, who will pay for the car, phone, food, and even if it's something happened for medicine, because it's really very difficult logistic part, and guys who came here, they should understand if they should pay for that or someone will pay for that.
Sona, do you want to answer that?
Okay, I will respond to the first and third questions, and I will leave the second to Tigran. We have reservations regarding cooperating with the observers related to any political party. So we do not feel, the observers, as I mentioned, so the rule that I mentioned is actually written in the law, that the observers should be neutral and they shouldn't be defending any political party. So the observation missions that are relating to some political party, they cannot be neutral by default, even if they register as observers, so they cannot be neutral at all. That's why we have reservations cooperating with such organizations, but as I mentioned, we are ready to cooperate with the political parties themselves in the identification of the violations and reporting. As for the third question, we request that diasporans pay for their travel, their expenses. Just the only thing that we are proposing to them is that we will reimburse for their food on the day of the elections and also for the communication. And we will try to arrange, not try, but we will arrange for their transportation from their hotels or their houses to the precincts and the return. So this is the only offering that we have for the diasporans. We explained them, I mean, in our calls we mentioned this so that they are aware.
So basically your expenses on the day of are taken care of. It's up to you to get here and where you're going to stay.
And answering to the...
Just in this respect, from the beginning it has been very clear with the call that we have put out, and everyone who's working towards this in this platform in terms of engaging the diaspora and interest to come as observers, the expenses are clearly on the individuals to cover, from the travel costs to finding accommodation. Maybe technically there are possibilities to find for them accommodations, but whatever expenses are to be incurred, it's going to be taken on by the person who's volunteering for this experience. So this is very clear, and from the beginning it has been stated as such. So there is no confusion around this. And if this can be an issue or not, perhaps to some it might be an issue, but for others it's not. And there are a few ways of also, I mean, if a young person is going to come to Armenia to a summer camp, for instance, maybe this year they will change that option because their parents are going to pay for their participation for this particular involvement in the life of Armenia in a concrete way. So I don't think the financial issue is such a big obstacle in that case. Interest?
Speak on the answer to the second question.
Yes. So actually, it's a difficult question, but and we can talk about this longer than, but the short answer to your question. So the arguments you used, the government were using when they were closing these lists for the public. But the problem is that the secrecy of voting does not include the secrecy of participating for the elections, because you as a director can easily go to the precinct and see your staff voting or not. I can see them, I can photo, video and public the pictures and etc. So it's not a right, and there is no country where the so I mean, in Europe, there is no country where the participation is the part of secrecy of vote, and the most countries don't have a restriction of getting these signed voter lists and getting similar to them. So even those countries who has this restriction, it's not because it's a part of right of secrecy of vote, but because they are protecting personal data, and because of their procedures, there are that type of personal data which they want to protect. So it's not right, and it's very right that now we have published signed voter lists.
Can I also add very quickly to that? There's a concept of whether your right to vote is an obligation or a right, and different countries treat it differently. There are plenty of democracies around the world who actually oblige their citizens to vote. Okay, so it's technically a conceptual question, but I completely understand you where you're coming from, because there are cultural nuances, obviously, and we have the experience where certain political parties have intimidated their members to ensure that their close-by people vote for them, and they are under threat of, once the voters lists are published, if their names are not on there, then they'll be under threat, etc., etc. Now, it's very important to take into consideration the pros and cons of the cultural nuances of different countries, and we know historically that the party in power has used its administrative strength to exercise that very element of intimidating voters to go to vote. So in one sense, this is a victory where voters' lists will be published, obviously not how they voted, but the fact that they've actually went to the polling station. But it's only half a victory because we know that voters' lists are expanded. There's a lot of work to be done to clean them up. So a few things need to be taken into consideration. First of all, conceptually, there are democracies that oblige their citizens to vote. Voting secrecy is not violated in any way by publishing the voters' lists. It's just making it public and giving us an extra instrument to police the state as it releases this information, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a great question in terms of cultural nuances, but it has, unfortunately, over the course of the past 20 years, worked negatively for Armenia. So hopefully this time around it will be better. Thank you.
Thank you, Irina. Please.
Good evening, my name is Edgar, and I would like to learn a bit more about the Citizen Observer Initiative's role during the voting day. Because continuing the last question, summing it up, I see that on election day the Citizen Observer Initiative will provide transportation to and from the precincts and catering. So that's fixed here, and that's good, and thank you for it. But I'm more worried about a question about security. Because there's also a sentence, observers will be provided with full legal and security protections by the Citizen Observer Initiative. And I would like to understand how Citizen Observer Initiative is collaborating all the people who are working with us, just not to feel that I'm here alone or with my partner, but I'm like we are here too, and there's no one standing behind us, and we are like insecure. And in case of any fraud is fixed, what will be the actions of your initiative? Because there are some formal rules how these things should be done, but I personally not really believing that it works. And I would like to understand the role of our initiative, how we are going to protect, how we're going to make the security. Thank you.
Good question.
Okay, on the day of elections, we are operating a big call center, a coordination center, where we get all these reports from the observers through SMS. Also, we get our operators. We have several dozens of operators who are getting in touch with the observers to get more information on the observed incidents. And we have constant, and we have legal team who is providing consultation to the observers if there is a need to explain some provisions of the law, if there is a threat, and we had several cases when the observers have been threatened, and of course we cannot provide personal security, we can't provide security guards, for example, but the lawyers are providing consultation how to behave in that case, get out of the precinct or stay in the precinct, what to do. Also, in some places, to the extent possible, we might have the mobile groups who can help, but it will not be possible in all the precincts throughout the country, of course. So the security, the assistance we are providing is through legal expertise, basically. And afterwards, whatever you have observed, that's being the basis of the complaints that are being addressed by the legal team to the territorial electoral commissions, to the courts, to the law enforcement bodies, depending on the specifics of the case. Do you want to continue?
So, also, we are providing some advices, which Sona mentioned, and we are planning to have mobile teams, including also a lawyer, and it might be very effective if something happens. But anyway, the first advice is any threat, but you don't need and you don't have to go out of the precinct. You need to stay there even under threat, because it's more secure than outside, because there are a lot of witnesses, and it's just emotional thing, and you need to stay there even under pressure, but don't go out, especially at night. So wait until our mobile team will react, and our lawyers will act, and you will feel it soon in several minutes. As soon as you give us the information, we are spreading it by the media. We are filing complaints to the law enforcement bodies and to the CEC, and in 99% of cases they are reacting immediately and they are stopping the problem.
Can I just add very quickly, as formerly having observed elections in a very dodgy area, I would say your biggest weapon, even in terms of security, is knowing the electoral code. Because once you start citing this and that regulation and saying that you're violating, I'm recording you, you are on video, and you will be prosecuted, this is criminal offense, it does work. Trust me, it has worked in my case. Also, just to add, there are police officers there. Very often they just disappear in the very critical situations. So even you have the law enforcement agents there to protect you, hypothetically, but your best weapon is knowing the electoral code and obviously having this mobile team of lawyers who can come in, cite the actual article and say, you will be criminally prosecuted. And the good thing is that we already have cases where people who are violating, and there's hard evidence such as video, they were criminally prosecuted and imprisoned for electoral fraud.
Also, I want to add that one positive outcome of our years of persistent observation of the elections, that the Central Electoral Commission became more sensitive towards this online reporting system. So they're watching it closely. Whenever a new violation is reported on the website, they immediately contact the precinct commissions, trying to check what's going wrong. Sometimes they are recommending them to behave better. So in that sense, the Central Electoral Commission became a partner with us, if I can mention like that.
Great, thank you. Sarah?
So we have lots of active questions from outside of Armenia. I'm going to try to bring them down to two questions. The first one is very short. There's some discussion about the date of the election changing because of April 2nd being the anniversary of the 4-day war. So if you know anything about that, if you can comment on the date change. And some people are asking about the consequences. So for example, Edgar A says, if there's a slam dunk case of fraud, what kind of consequences will follow, by whom and by when after the vote? So about consequences. And Laura asks, if I'm a diasporan with an Armenian passport, but I can't come to vote and someone votes in my place, what do I do? So the first one about the date and the second about consequences.
About that. Just do you have a backup plan if the election day would be shifted for 10 days or 5 days or 40 days? Just if you have a backup plan or not?
So our plans will not change because, I mean, we will be ready to observe elections anytime. The problem will be probably with diasporans who are going to buy tickets and they do not know when to buy, for which date to buy. And we completely understand this inconvenience, but it's very unfortunate that we cannot be for sure in our crazy country that these rules will be kept, because according to the presidential decree, it's decided April 2, but suddenly some people recalled that this is day of commemoration of the April 4-day war. The change will be basically illegal because there is no legal ground for that, but everything is possible because the president himself declared that he will wait until the political parties register and then they will discuss with the political parties whether to shift or not shift. And the registration of the political parties will end in the end of February, like 26th, I think, of February. So only by then we will know who is registered, and then they will probably start consultations to see whether the day is shifted or no. And the best probably solution will be if by March 5th, which is the date of the first day of the election campaign, when it should start, at least if by then we know, that will be a good thing. It's very unfortunate that we cannot help with this information and make clear for our colleagues for which dates to buy the ticket.
And what about consequences? So if there is a clear case of, if somebody observes a case of election fraud, what do they do and what happens next?
So it's very simple. If he's observer or he's anyway cooperating with the observation mission, the first thing he need to create, take the evidence, proof. Second thing, he need to report to the call center. Third thing, he need to try to register. He need to ask to register the fraud in the journal of precinct. Third thing or fourth thing, and so if it is not done, he need to take the evidence for this, and he need to report one more time, and then we will continue the complaining process. We will forward these facts to the bodies, officials in the Central Electoral Commission, and of course, if it is needed, but after the administrative procedures, we can also forward this complaint to the General Prosecutor's Office. And then all these kind of frauds are coming together, combining, and they are reflected in the final complaint, and they can be used with by the parties, and they can be raised in the Constitutional Court.
I know in the past there was a very limited amount of time to be able to lodge complaints. Has that been extended at all, or are we still dealing with the same time?
No, to be honest, there are two components. They limited the complaining procedural timing, but they extended to complaining period time. So the first was the first complaints from the were after the day of election until the 6 o'clock, the 6 o'clock p.m. Now it's extended to the next day until the 11 o'clock a.m. The second new complaining period is only about the complaints about the election instead of someone. This kind of complaints can be brought the third day after the election until 11 o'clock a.m. But there are procedural timing in administrative court which are seriously restricted.
Okay, thank you. One more question, please.
Sorry, I still haven't got a sense. I don't know. Maybe I didn't understand. But what would be the consequences? Once you do report all these issues, what are the consequences if they are proven to be fraudulent? I think that was the question that came in. So I would like also to know. I understand that there is a procedure to apply the fraud. I mean, to present the fraud. But so what? What's going to happen? I mean, what are the measures that you can use in terms of making it consequential?
It's a very, very important thing, and thank you for this question. Okay, this time it's a different thing than we had it previously, because previously we had local self-government elections, we had presidential election, we had referendum, and none of them are conventional right, and all the complaints. I'm talking about the European Convention of Human Rights. And all these complaints were buried in the domestic instances. But now the election of parliament, the election of legislative bodies, conventional right, and now all these complaints can be taken to the and should be taken to the European Court of Human Rights, and it means that every official and every administrative body which are dealing with the electoral fraud will keep in mind that these decisions are going to be reviewed by the European Court of Human Rights, and our government's experience with this court are quite not very positive for them. So I think and I hope and I suppose that this conventional right and the right to apply to the European Court of Human Rights will dramatically change the situation with effective remedies and effective investigating of the frauds.
Thank you, Dika. Yes, please.
Thank you. Is there some central coordination of volunteers who might be willing to assist with logistical issues like auto transport or overnight accommodations, especially for people coming from the diaspora, and might be more encouraged if they knew they had a place to stay for a couple of nights?
Yes, I think you should just contact us, so we will include your name so that we will have plenty of work besides observation on the day of elections. So it would be our pleasure if you get together.
Great.
Thank you.
I think we also consider having some additional events, introducing interesting programs and projects on the ground so that people just don't come just for voting, for becoming an observer, but also getting acquainted with different doers and different change makers in Armenia.
Very good point. Yes, please.
Hi, I have a question on the methodology. Normally, election observation missions not only deploy observers on the election day, which is an important part of the process, but they also write and deliver reports, which have the political effect of the missions. I'm wondering if you are going to deliver the report, and I expect yes. If so, how is the connection between the diaspora observers and the headquarters is going to work? What's the procedure? To what extent it's going to be transparent and deliberative? That's
For sure, we are going to have report. We even all the elections we observed and all the reports which were published, they are reviewed in the light of the complaints on the frauds during those elections. So, for example, we now are updating the report on constitutional referendum, including the whole this complaining procedure during this year, during last year. So we're very dynamic in this reporting issue. The other transparency support us the violation map. So we see the reports about frauds online, and everybody can see this. And those reports are included in the final report. Or if they are not included, so you can understand reading the report why and where they were taken. I mean, within the administrative procedure or complaining procedure, and I think that it's quite transparent enough. The next question was the diaspora's involvement. You mean the information?
To what extent the observers themselves will be participating in the drafting of the report?
Drafting of
It
the
also
report.
adds to the deliberative process. It also adds to the accountability of the report.
Okay, so
Theoretically, there may be situations when the observers may observe something and then they see a report which is completely different. So theoretically, that's to make sure that there is no disconnection between the observer and the report.
You mean-
What's the methodological device that you are employing?
just want to clarify the word report. You mean the report which is complaint report or observation report? Mission report?
That's why at the beginning I asked, are you going to have a final report?
Yes, we are going to have. Also, this is a requirement of the law. Now, within 1 month, any observation mission has to publish its report on the Central Electoral Commission's website. So it's a requirement, and we will definitely have one. To what extent the observers participate? Basically, the observers participate with their SMS reports, with the regular contact, as I mentioned, with the call center when the operators are getting more details regarding the different incidents. That's how they participate. So it would be difficult for us to share the report in advance and to get the comments, etc. But basically they cannot even contribute much more than whatever they observed. So to the extent that they report the incidents and the observed violations well, we will have the same thing in the report, reflected in the report.
And yes, they can public domain on the Central Electoral Commission's website and on the Citizen Observer website. So they can read and they can write their comments or write their disagreement on this. Did you answer your question?
Before going to the next question, I realized I should have asked this at the very beginning. So in particular, I want to ask to Irina and Marta. You guys have both been observers. Sona and Dikran have obviously been part of this for a very long time, but what's sort of one memorable thing you remember, like a positive impact you feel you had by being an observer during the elections that you've observed before? I think it's sort of going to make it a little bit more personal.
Just to lighten up the mood a bit, I felt like everyone was on their toes throughout the entire day. It was one of the most exhausting days of my life because we got there at 7 a.m. and we didn't leave the precinct until close to 3 a.m. the next day. And the fact that, as I said, it was traditionally a voting certain way polling station. So obviously the president of the committee, a lot of members of the committee were very biased, and our presence there, the fact that we actually knew the electoral code, and back then we had to pass the examination and have the certification. So from the moment we stepped into the precinct and saw the violations in the actual polling station, where you are not supposed to have any campaign material, and there was on the walls, and we demanded removing them. From that moment onwards, at 7 a.m., everyone was on their toes, and as much as stressful it was great and fun because you could exercise actually your authority as an observer to make sure that everyone is abiding by the rule of the law. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so it was a pretty difficult day. It started with, it wasn't so much positive in the beginning, but at the end, a lot of local people who were at the polling stations working, they were asking questions about legal aspects and asking us to contact our lawyers to provide the right information. But the most funny and exciting stuff was outside of the polling station. I was at the Malaja Sebastia region, so there were a lot of cars with 888 numbers. And we have to deal with them, and we had to tell them that they need to get rid of that place, so they need to leave their taramas, tag, as they say. I'll tell you later. So yeah, so it's the plate numbers. It's the plate numbers of people who live there. If they are privileged enough, they have 888 numbers. So it doesn't matter. The one guy actually who was standing there with a special role, I think so. He saw that we have a very good camera, and he asked us to make a picture of his car. And I asked, why do you need this? He said, because I want to sell my car. So, and then he actually approached me several times when I was going out of the polling station and asked whether I will be sending to him these photos. I took his email, and the first thing I did when I came back home at 5 o'clock in the morning, I sent him his photos of his car. And he sent me a long email, response email, when he really appreciated and he didn't believe that I would do this. So being an observer is not just about the duties, it's about being in touch with many people, different mentality, different mindset, and working with them as well, changing them as well.
If I may take this...
But did you manage to send the facts, evidences during you collected before sending this mail to that guy?
No, because it was in the range of 100 meters.
He knows the law. Last time knew the law, and he was following.
I would like to pick up on something that you said earlier, Irina, about the observers not necessarily knowing the complexities of life or the criticism that can be heard. But it looks like that through this participation, this is one step closer that you can come to understand the exact sort of reality and dynamic. And what better way than to start with this for any diasporan the observer to come to Armenia and start perhaps to address the criticism that can be half true. They may not know, but if the interest and curiosity and engagement is there, it seems like this is a fantastic forum for them to be learning, observing, learning, and contributing in that sense. So I just wanted to add to what you brought up earlier.
Thank you. Lucy.
First of all, thank you very much for being here and doing this. Thank you. I want to come back to a question that somebody else answered about security and so on. The diasporans who will be volunteering to come from abroad, do you have a system as to where you're going to be locating them? Have you chosen? Are they going to be within Yerevan? Are they going to go through the regions? Unless the diasporan who's coming doesn't have an objection, do you have a system as to how you're going to locate them? My second question, is to Tigran. You've been taking notes and you've been making reports on all the violations in previous elections. And I know some of them have been to European court. Am I right to say that? Some of the violations from previous elections. Have they gone to European court? Have we had any response from there? And where can like the diasporans who are interested to observe and want to know what's happening from previous elections, where can they see the results from all those violations? And thirdly, will the panel be volunteering this year to observe?
I think that that answer has been inherently provided, but also publicly, I think it has been made. I don't know about Irina, I think you may be in a different situation this year. And, and I may not recommend, maybe in your case, even though I don't know what your intentions are, but I think it's self-evident.
Thank you.
One was about how you place, how you're going to place.
Okay, of course it will depend on the amount of people, but we are thinking that it would be better for the organizational purposes to deploy the diasporans like in a concentrated way, and most likely that will be Yerevan. But unless we have some preferences, and we already have some people who expressed the willingness to serve, for example, in Yeregnadze or Sisyan somewhere. So we will listen to their preferences if they insist on those, but for us, for our organizational purposes, it would be better to have them all together. And
the second question. The first applications were sent to European Court after the Yerevan Council elections in 2013. And we don't have any communication yet. I mean, except the barcode. And I can't say when the case or the cases which were sent later will be communicated by European Court. It's unpredictable. But it's not. It doesn't mean that the observation and the complaining process and the evidence gathering process is meaningless. No, I can bring different other examples. You can judge from that these efforts are effective enough, and just are saying that they're not enough. The efforts are not enough. So we don't have enough awareness. We don't have enough people who are ready to fight for their rights, to fight long enough for their rights, and to bring to pay something for these rights, you know. So having rights, it's not the same with exercising the right, and having rights written in Constitution, it's not the same it's not the same when you understand this right, when your people understand this right and exercise in during his life and every day. So it's different things, and we need to raise the awareness, and we need to raise the consciousness, and that is the way. But about the positive outcomes, so starting from 2013 we had a lot of complaints, and they were actually just left without, we can say that, yes, maybe left without attention, yes. But during referendum, we had 780 facts which were taken into attention and into procedure by the General Prosecutor's Office, and until now 78 cases were sent to the 78 cases were sent to the courts, and 56 were sentenced. Is it good? Yes. Is it enough? No. But it means that the work and the efforts are giving the first effects, and these 66 are a good example, not only for them and their friends and neighbors and, I don't know, families, but also to all of them who knew about that and who are going to think about participating in the election falsifications or in electoral frauds, in making electoral frauds. So it's a process which is it's a process which took place in all the countries we now bring as an example. Also including USA, including European countries. So it's nothing new. We just need to pass through this stage later than some countries did.
Well, I just want to mention that observers really make a lot of change. If they are professional, if they are independent, if they are politically non-biased, the entire atmosphere at the polling station changing. Let's look at this as a long-term process. Don't look at the elections as a one-time event. This is really important. We need to develop, as I mentioned before, it should become a part of a culture to go and assure the local population which is going to the elections that there will be no fraud or there will be little fraud, that they can vote as they want. And your presence will definitely help them to do that. There will be much more assured that they can vote and nobody will know whom they are voting for. And the entire process will be different. So just think about your role in this process. And if we're talking about 4,000 people, we have 3 million people living in Armenia. We have 7 million diasporan Armenians. This is a very small number. 4,000 people, it's just nothing. It's just peanuts. So we can do this, and I'm sure that if we make this year 4,000 people, then if it's necessary, we can have 6,000 people for next elections. And why shouldn't we do this? I mean, I'm for that. I took part in 2013. This was a very valuable experience for me, and I'm sure it can be a valuable experience for you as well.
In terms of what you're saying, it's very true that why not? But I think the question that I've been hearing in the last while is, yes, but ultimately this participation and this contribution to the election process, is it going to change the system? I'll tell you, I personally don't believe at this point that with this one particular election, the entire system that has been put in place in the last 25 years and on very shaky grounds is going to be changed. But what is going to be changed is the fact that you are expressing interest to bring that change yourselves by participation. So what you are doing, and it has not been done in large enough numbers or expression of engagement, is to say that you are part of that change, and that change is possible because there is hope, step at a time, to be making that shift possible. These elections are not going to be assessed just unto themselves, but the process by which each of us from our own civil societies we're going to be approaching, then it's going to be assessing over time how we are actually not only asking, not only claiming, but we are becoming participants towards that change. If you look at the history of election monitoring as the basic democratic process that every society should benefit, and I come from a history of a country where we have done what's being done today in Armenia perhaps 100 years ago, but we have gone through the same thing. We have done it through participation. We have claimed it. We have taken on the responsibility. So this change that is happening also right now in other parts of the world, be it in Africa, the other day there was the example at USC's lecture in Peru, it takes time. But we do have time. We have wasted 25 years perhaps by not being participants, by not taking on the responsibility, but you can make that change happen on April 2nd by not only bringing your own commitment to it, but also by speaking out about it to your families, to your friends, to anyone. I mean, with social media, this is wide open to distribute, to disseminate as a concept, and beyond the concept as the practical reality of it. So I think what is really important at this stage in this conversation is to say to all of us that we have the responsibility towards that change. That change is not going to come out from somewhere else. And that change is not necessarily going to come out through complete destruction of a system or a infrastructure. It's going to be shifting changes that you all can be part of, and you are responsible of it. The risks, the possibilities, they're all equal to all of us, and we do have all to share that notion that we are part of that history for change in this country right now.
Thank you very much to everyone. I think we've come to the end of our time. I wanted to thank our panelists for a very enlightening, especially the conclusions. That was awesome. Thanks to all of you for your patience and the good questions. And we'll see you on Election Day as observers and as participants of the process. Thank you.